Welcome back to another episode of A Life Partner TV. I am your host and creator, Dr. Mario Torres-Leon. And as I say every single time that I have the huge privilege of hosting and welcoming somebody into our show, particularly in the HPS, or what we call here the Human Power Series, it's really a moment of celebration for us. As I've said before in the past, and I'll continue to say every single time that I have this honor and privilege, it really is not about me. It's really about the lives of all the people that are really living and breathing the work that we do. And it's about them being able to showcase themselves, to be able to share the insights, the awarenesses that have come through, not because of the work they have done with me, but because of their journey, the beauty of their journey, and what has happened, the transformation that took place, the moments that they were able to experience, and the places that they were able to visit with themselves and otherwise because of the power of the work. Today, I have a great pleasure in welcoming one of our esteemed and beloved members in our community, and I really mean that. Because Rachel Fligman, who is a New Yorker here in the United States, she actually embodied in the course of those 28 days, and I would have to say at a very early stage of one of our recent cycles of GL28 or the 28-day gratitude launchpad, she really embodied the full aspect of what being a powerful human is all about. Not only because she's a woman that is actually a strong woman and a leader in her community, but because her degree of vulnerability, willingness, and courage to step out of her comfort zone on a daily basis, to show her face in the program, to show us what was coming up for her. In some cases, producing and creating some of the longest videos that we've had to fully show all her colors without being apologetic. She moved the world in that particular cycle, and I really mean it because we had people from all over the world who were part of our community in a really safe container inside of the GL28 program. Rachel, it's such an honor to have you here, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I hope you can feel that. And thank you for your generosity, for being here to show up and to really share insights with us and everybody in the community, to talk about what's possible, talk about really the beauty of the journey with all the ups and downs, and how the power of transformation lies in really wanting to meet all of those spaces, all of those places within us. So thank you so much for being here in Life Partner TV.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here in the community.
Thank you, Rachel. Rachel, let's have some fun with this and dive into this. Professionally speaking, you are a teacher,
I am a
which is
teacher.
a very challenging profession, and a profession that has impacted my life massively because of some of the teachers that I've had in my life. I was talking to you before we started the recording and talking about not forgetting the Mrs. Mullen, my first grade teacher, and how impactful she was for me when I was 6 years old, to the point that I don't forget her. But beyond the aspect of you being a teacher, you're a leader in your community in the New York area. At one point, you even said that you are let me see if I can remember the exact words, but you are a professional, what's the word you use, Rachel?
Did I say volunteer?
A professional volunteer. Thank you. Yes.
I am, some people might call it a sucker, but I call it a professional volunteer because I think that since the time I was a kid, I was the seeker, feeler, healer. So where I feel there is a need, I jump right in. So as a young adult, I was always involved in like junior Catholic daughters. And then as I got older and had children, I ended up in the parent-teacher groups or the parent-faculty organizations, giving back to the school community while being able to be part of my children's education. So I've been doing that for years. My oldest is 13. She started school when she was 6. So,
well, somebody like you, by definition, falls into the category of being big givers. My experience is that those of us, and I can relate to that, who are, let's say, professional givers, as another way to talk about the professional volunteers, sometimes we run into the challenges of not necessarily being great receivers. And I'm not saying that's your case, but it's something that we do. We derive a lot of our value, our honor, gaining respect from the world by giving. And we truly mean it from the heart, not that we're necessarily doing it for the sake of getting something out of people.
Yes.
But I want you to share with us, Rachel, how your life journey had been before coming into our community. I know that you're a seeker. You just mentioned it, and clearly your path has a lot to do with that. But I want you to speak to that because there's some elements in your personal journey that have been really powerful, from from the seeking piece to the healing piece to the journey of health and all of
Mhm.
those things. Walk us a little bit through that because there's some really powerful elements there, Rachel.
Sure. So I say seeker as a child because from very on, I was always interested in the hows and whys of things, and surface level answers were never really good enough for me. So yeah, even until like today, my husband and I usually cannot get through a TV show without me pausing to research more of what's going on in the show. Um, but you know, as a seeker, it also led me to have a deep rooted faith. I had gone to Catholic school growing up, and in Catholic schools or any type of religious school, you're taught whatever your faith is. But I didn't want to just read about it. I wanted to know about it. And for me, being that seeker was knowing that even at 8 years old, I knew that there was a common thread that held us all together. For me, it was God, it was a belief in Jesus, who I know always walked with me every step of the way. You could call him whatever you want and whatever religion you are, but I believed we were always connected. And because I believed in that connection, I also think that I became the feeler and and the healer. I searched out the kid on the playground who didn't have the friend, or the kid who was home week sick after having his tonsils removed. I wrote get well cards to him because I really felt for that person in my heart. So those characteristics are basically what eventually led me to my work as an educator because I wanted to be the voice of the student, to see the student, right? To seek the student, to heal the student, to feel the student. So I always went over and above for my children, for my students. Um, let's see, over the course of my life, there were some hiccups, as there are in anyone's life. I am definitely a strong, opinionated woman, so nobody, is able to hold me down or keep me down. I was blessed to meet my husband at a ripe old age of 30 years old because, I wasn't going to settle for anything less than what my soul needed, right? And I say my
Mm.
soul because I honestly do believe that uh, my soul is what is new. My soul knew what I needed best, and it was my husband, Jason, who is probably it's taken me about 20 years. I've known him 20 years to fully appreciate and say that, right? Um, so, um, So we have the journey of marriage. I feel like I'm getting off track. So when I was 31, I was pregnant with my firstborn, and my dad was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and he left us within about 5 weeks' time. And it took a while to grasp what had happened and the removal of that, very strong person from my life. Um, and while grief can be intense, and many of us end up getting stuck in the grief, um, I try to channel the loss into it being something that was propelling me forward to make me a stronger individual. And I mention that twofold. One is because my father had a very strong personality, and I give him credit for the person that I am today. Because if you can imagine two strong personalities growing up in the same household, it wasn't always easy. But learning and growing up in that made me maybe be able to overcome some of the harder things that were going to come my way, I guess I should say. So with his loss, then I had my daughter a couple weeks later. I went back to work for about a year, and I said to my husband, "I don't want to do this anymore. I can't." There was a shift in me. I decided that I would much prefer being home, thinking that life could pass you by so quickly. I wanted to spend it doing the good things, and the good thing for me was to be home raising my children. So we made that change, and I took on the role of CHO. which is Chief Household Officer.
Love that.
Yes. And I have been in that role for 10 years now. My little guy is 10, so a full decade of being home with these crazy kids. But that role has then allowed me to become the professional volunteer, getting involved in school and the community and things like that. And everybody serves a purpose, right? So, I that was my purpose for a long time. However, uh, let's say in March of 2023, I had this wild dream one night that there were three coyotes in my backyard. And the three coyotes were actively trying to get in my house, and I was shooing them out. And I slammed my glass door and I woke up, right? And I'm assuming you don't think I'm crazy having this dream, right? So um, I woke up and I said, "Oh my gosh, what the heck is going on?" And if a dream like that happens to me, I will usually look it up. I have a dream book on the side of my table. So I opened up the book and it said, "Waking mischief is coming your way. Don't worry, you will be transformed, but be ready for a ride." And I was like, "What? Who does that to a mother of three?" Thank God it happened to me though, because I wouldn't be where I am today had I had not had this experience. So, so that was in March. In April, I turned 44, and I scheduled a routine mammogram. Got a call back that they needed more pictures, which was totally routine. It happens to me all the time. At the time, my 13-year-old had concussion, so she was only in school half days. So I dragged her with me to the radiologist's office for more pictures. And after I had the pictures taken, the technician walked over and said to me, "I need to put your daughter in a private room. You have to speak to the doctor." And I was like,
Mm.
what is happening right now? And, you go through life always thinking that you're going to get tomorrow, right? And sometimes tomorrow changes. So I sat, you know, my husband was texting me, "Hey, we're still going on this vacation in June." Members of the PTA community were texting me, "Hey, did you finish yearbook?" My mother was texting me, "Hey, I need that recipe." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just need a moment of peace." Anyway, I sat there with that doctor, and she literally said to me, "What happened in your life this year? Because your tissue change is so dramatic that it could have only is so radically different from last year's that it could have only been caused by an immense amount of stress." And I thought to myself, "Hmm, my dad had died of cancer. My dad's mother had died of breast cancer. So perhaps there was a genetic component in there. But in that moment when she said that, I probably had a list of things that were stressing me out. And it's amazing what the body can hold on to and not think it's stressing you out until you actually have to think about it. Um, so, needless to say, I left her in her office that day with a biopsy. I went for the biopsy, then I had to go for the MRI biopsy, and then I had to go for the lumpectomy. And they found three spots with early stage breast cancer. And I realized that those were my three coyotes because everything during this whole procedure kept coming up three, three, three. There were three doves that would sit at my window every morning. And there was something else with three. I think there were three nurses in the room with me every time I had to have a test. But the short of it is that during what was probably one of the most scary experiences of my life, I never felt like I was alone. And I think that tied back to the seeker child inside me who, didn't have to see to believe things, just believed that things existed. I knew my doctors were there because God had put them there. I knew that the nurses that held my hand through every test were there because God had put them there. And I truly knew I was going to be just fine. So I went through that year and a half, I guess, almost 2 years of tests and surgeries. Um, with this mindset that I had my husband and my kids who were there to take care of me. I also had family that I had expected to help me out, but didn't help me out in the way that I expected them to,
Mm.
which is kind of disappointing, right? And then I had neighbors and friends who showed up when I least expected it. And I began to think that perhaps I was seeing things wrong, right? I was placing expectations on things. I was taking on stress. I was, doing everything in the household, running my kids there, perhaps over volunteering, trying to make extra money on the side to, add into the household income. I was just doing too much. And perhaps that diagnosis was a big old slap in the face. And similar to like when my father had passed, I didn't think, oh, woe is me. I thought this is happening for me. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. And if I can find the reason for it, then I will grow. And I always believed that. And so that moment on, I chose to live my life differently. Um, in August of 2024, I received the all clear sign. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know how to step forward. I was a little bit nervous. I felt probably the weakest, ugh, who says weakest, mentally, that I've had felt in my life. And I didn't want to go backwards. I think that's the thing is with humans, in general, or I'll say for me, is we tend to hold on to what is familiar because we are so afraid to let go and trust in what is new. And I was afraid, and I didn't like being afraid. So I ended up um, going on Facebook that night, to kind of drown out whatever I was feeling. And up popped this class. It was called A Goddess Ceremony with a woman in our community, Tina Bertoli. And I said, you know what? I think I lost my inner goddess through this whole process and I'm not liking it. And I need to reconnect with her. So I went to that class with Tina and it was like, I automatically plugged in and I knew that, another thing with humans is that we tend to seek community, right? Or a sense of community. We look for communities in our families, communities in friendships, communities in school communities. And communities are great, but they can also be very draining if they're not the right community. And so what I found entering that class with Tina was that perhaps I was entering the right community because I was seeing a Rachel or a version of Rachel that I knew had existed, but
Mm.
perhaps I had forgotten about with all the years of stress and obligation and, loss of fun and loss of joy, all those things that I allowed to compile on myself, So I started taking those classes. I got involved in, the more spiritual side of myself. I went back to church. I started doing daily mindful meditations. I went on a retreat in November. I've attended sound healing and goddess ceremony classes every month. And come January, maybe of this year, early February, I was beginning to feel overwhelmed again. Christmas had passed, my daughter's birthday had passed. I was getting ready to transfer out of my position in the PTA community, and I felt like I was holding on to things too tightly. And I received an email for the Gratitude Launch community. And I was like, bingo, the community is starting tomorrow, and
Wow.
this is your like last day to join. And it was a sign. I believe in signs, I'm the seeker, I'm the finder. So to me, it was a sign. And I signed up that night and showed up for the welcome Zoom class the next morning.
Rachel, there's a lot to unpack here because your story is amazing. I really honor the fact that you can share so candidly, particularly that really radical dream that you had.
Wild,
Indeed.
wild.
And a really powerful message. But there was also another message within the message, this power of the power of you're going to be okay throughout all of this, that your
Mm,
life is going to evolve into something else.
mhm,
It deepened your awareness. Evidently, it deepened your capacity to receive the journey, however it was going to be unfold.
mm,
There's something really powerful too in this story, which is, well, anybody listening to this may say, well, dreams, this and that, and not really have much credence into that. We'll honor that. But for those who are more into evidence based
mm,
anything,
mhm,
there's something that is not disregardable, if we can say that word, in this life journey of yours. When the radiologist, that woman, the doctor, tells you what happened in your life in the last year,
mm,
because
mhm,
clearly the statement reveals something. She was comparing your present mammograms at that point in
mhm,
time in 2023 against whatever mammograms she had seen of yours or the doctors had seen of yours that were being used for comparison purposes.
mhm,
One thing is for us to come into anything and interpret what a dream or somebody said. Another thing is to put some physical evidence in front of you and you say, apples, not apples,
mm,
right? It's like, no, this is oranges over here. Clearly, something has happened. That is a very powerful thing because there was a physical representation, physical manifestation, physical evidence that the architecture of your body, which is what we look at mammograms, and I'm speaking now as a radiologist myself,
mm,
that pattern, those patterns is what we look at to be able to detect disease or things that just don't look right that we need to go deeper into,
mm,
right?
mhm,
And this speaks to something that is very compelling that people in the mind body medicine space, we have been talking about this for a long time. This is something that I have seen in over 30 years of being a physician. There are other things that impact our health. And yes, you said
mm,
genetics might have played a role, perhaps.
mhm,
The fact of the matter is, we can't disregard that in your life's journey, in the years leading to that particular
mhm,
incident where a diagnosis was made, Rachel was traversing certain, instances, moments, pieces of her life journey, which were really challenging.
mhm,
And now suddenly, I am going to say your body definitely was just like a little child pulling on the mom's pants,
mhm. Yes.
calling you to a much more different journey, which needed to be fed by the fact that, or was synergistic with the fact that you were a seeker from very early on in your life.
Mhm, mhm.
There was a piece of you that really wanted to be part of this healing journey since you were a little girl.
Yes. Yes.
And the way that things have been evolving, not to blame you or anything, just the way, looking at it as objectively as we can, we're calling you to a different path. Can you speak to that? Because this is so powerful in your journey, Rachel. It's so beautiful too, despite the pain and the disharmony and the suffering that comes along with
Mm,
being told you have cancer, which is such an emotionally charged
mm,
word in
mhm,
our society. Especially now we attach to that being a woman and then saying breast cancer.
mm, mhm, mm,
Really, really powerful portion of your life journey. Wow.
mhm, mhm,
And you speak to that, and then basically, what starts to happen? I know you arrive at GL 28. Now you're here in GL 28.
mhm,
You have been in a journey of reconnecting with the inner goddess.
mm, mhm.
Super powerful.
I love her.
I
Yeah,
love
she's
that too.
just
Tina's amazing. She's a beloved member of our community, like you are. As many people, if you have not seen some of the recordings we do with Tina, I invite
yeah,
you to do so. Another powerhouse like Rachel, and a beautiful giver too. But now something gets really activated inside of you,
it did. Yes,
like
something
big
got
time. What
big
happened?
time,
What
big
happened?
time. There is no going back. Um, so so one of the things that Tina had brought up in that goddess ceremony was that when you experience trauma, And, trauma doesn't have to be like you were hit by a car, right? Trauma could be, you're 8 years old sitting in a second grade classroom, and some kid turns around and is like, ew, your legs are so hairy. You look like a mammoth, like something that happened that didn't make you feel good that you bottle up, right? And those little bits of trauma will exist in you. And if you don't address them, they make you sick anyway, right? Even though you don't believe they're there. So for me, I had gone on this retreat in November, and it was Tina again who did a breathwork class. And I was fascinated with breathwork because Tina had said that um, the idea of it was that we spend our whole lives not breathing because we're always so tense. We're holding it in, so we're not truly breathing, right? And that if you can just truly breathe and breathe it out, you can actually shift the frequency of the earth and the people in it. And just imagine how beautiful humanity would be if we just all breathed a little differently. So I had the pleasure of experiencing this breathwork class in this retreat I went to in November. And in it, I met my 8-year-old self, or I reconnected with her. And she was so beautiful. She was pure and loving and full of joy.
Mm,
And I realized that how could I be, going to church on Sundays or reading excerpts of the Bible or, doing all these things and missing the core fundamental teaching of most religions is that we're here to experience joy.
mm,
Everyone says it, Jesus says it, Buddha says it, right? We all say it. And we spend our days building walls around this emotion called joy with our have tos. And really, what is so high on our have to do list of the day where we can't have any little bit of joy? So, coming home from that retreat, I refused to lose that 8-year-old girl. Um, and so I, well, I had gone to church that Monday with my daughter because she had to do reconciliation. And I had seen the pastor there, and I mentioned my experience to him, and he said to me, Rachel, he said, you get it, you understand it. That every time you walk into this church, every time you wake up in the morning, that is who God sees. And I want you to leave here today knowing that's who you are, no matter what wrong you've done in your life, no matter, the dark side of you, no matter, what it is that you feel you haven't done right, that's who the universe always sees is that 8-year-old girl. So I guess, that's kind of where I've been. If you had asked me at 16 what I wanted to do with my life, I would have probably told you I wanted to be right here. So what I've been doing now over the past year is healing, from 16 to 46, is fixing that woman so she can be exactly who she was meant to be. There was a question that I heard the other day that said, what would it be like to play out your true self embodied and expressed? And that is the journey I am on. So,
beautiful. So, Rachel, thank you for sharing that. Anybody who's joining us in this conversation, you're watching a Life Partner TV with Dr. Mario Torres-Leon in another episode in our series, HPS Human Power Series with Mrs. Rachel Fligman. And we've been talking about her life journey and the discoveries and the awarenesses that have been coming in. Rachel, so you have now this mega life experience that is
mhm,
packaged in all of the things that have been happening to you. And then Tina mentions to you the gratitude journey. Well,
mhm,
the 28, the GL28 or the 28-day gratitude launchpad, as we call it here in our community. Many people have approached me and they come, from the angle of like, well, Dr. Mario, I have a gratitude practice already. I'm a really grateful person and all of that. And I think it's a really valid point. I've heard it many times and I welcome it. Uh, but I always reply to that and I say, it's not just teaching people how to be polite and thank you this, thank you for that, thank you for putting food on my plate. It's not about that. What did you come with? What expectations or notions did you have upon arriving at that kickoff call? And then what started to happen to your journey in your life? Because a lot of things happened in 28 days that were really incredible for you.
Yes,
So that's
wild.
not an inflated statement by any
No,
stretch.
no, not by any statement.
Reason why you're here.
Mhm,
And it started to happen very exponentially the more you really
mhm,
gave yourself to your process, not to me and the community. Yes, you gave massively because that's who you are. You're a giver. But no, there was something that clicked for you, and
mhm,
you just simply turned the freaking volume way up.
mhm, mhm.
Like, I'm going in.
Well, because I go big or go home,
And
right?
you did. So what happened between that initial expectation and then
Mhm.
what awareness started to really show up pretty early on in that first week of the journey that perhaps changed completely your perspective of what am I doing here?
Yes. So, the day I signed up for that class, I had gone for acupuncture, and the acupuncturist suggested to me keeping a gratitude journal. And I said to her, I keep a gratitude journal. You know, I write in it every day, right? And I said to her, oh, and I signed up for this gratitude class. So, you know, we're probably going to talk about being grateful and things we're grateful for. So she was like, okay, you know, all right, good. I'm glad you're doing it. So when I read the email, um, the book that we were doing, The Magic, I had bought that book 10 years ago
Wow.
because I believed I was losing my magic. You know, I have always seen this world from a magical place, you know. And in the course of 10 years, whether, you know, maybe it was my father's passing and the grief of it, maybe it was having kids and being that stay-at-home mom and doing everything, you know, maybe it was my husband's travel schedule, or maybe it was not having like a, you know, you know, a family community where I was getting help from my mother and watching the kids, or whatever it was. I had lost my joy from the time I purchased that book, when I had purchased that book, right? So now I had that book 10 years ago, and on your email, it said to purchase a copy of the book because we would be delving deep into this book. And I said, "Oh, I have it downstairs." I literally had to dust off the book. That's how long it sat on that shelf. And I said to the book, I guess it's time. I'm going to read you. I had no idea that you were going to make me delve deep into myself because I honestly thought I was a very grateful person. You know, I woke up when I, you know, met my husband. I thanked God every day that I met someone like him. When I had my children, I mean, I would wake up in the morning and be like, thank you for the birds. Thank you for the sky. Oh, it's so beautiful. But I was just saying the words.
Mm.
What this class did was it made me feel those words from day one. I think it was, you know, you had to read, you had to write, and you had to be honest with yourself. And then you had to be honest with yourself and your feelings in a community of people that you didn't know from all over the world. And it just, I think when you strip down the layers of yourself and you get to that inner core inside your heart where your soul resides, I tapped into something. And I don't just say it, I feel it and feel it and feel it.
Super, super powerful. Rachel, one of the things that I teach in my community, which has been one of my biggest discoveries in my personal journey that I teach the world, is the aspect of the feeling body.
Mm,
And as you experienced, there is such a disconnect that most of us have felt and lived through, sometimes in a very unconscious way, in some cases consciously, that there is this brain part of our lives, and then there's the rest of the body that is not really even being connected.
mhm,
And one of the things that I have come to realize, which I teach, as you know, is that gratitude plus feeling equals healing.
mhm,
It's a foundational principle in my work in the Alive Partner community, in every experiential course that I offer to people in my community. And it's foundational when it comes to really seeing healing experiencing milestones, breakthroughs, deep awarenesses, miracles, which you
Mm,
witness in those 28 days as much as I did.
mhm.
People having chronic illnesses and symptoms going away, people not being able to talk about themselves, and suddenly they're being able to open up.
So beautiful.
And it's just so beautiful and so powerful. It's we all healed in every single moment because
Mhm,
all of us,
mhm,
the way that the community was being done, the way we do it, the way we hold a safe space,
mm,
our judgment,
mhm,
so much love and respect for one another may sound cliche, but as you know from being there, it's real.
mhm. Yes.
Can you speak to that, because this aspect of being able to connect
Mhm,
mind and the feeling body,
mhm,
it completely took not only your experience but everybody in that cycle from all over the world. We have people, as you know, and they were experiencing that. All of us did together every single day for that cycle.
mm,
Can you speak
mhm.
to that and how that changed your experience of life?
So I think that when we communicate in daily life, when we talk to others, most of it is coming off the top of our head, right? So, for example, you can have an emotional, what you believe is an emotional conversation with somebody and walk away from it and be like, that person didn't understand what I was saying at all, right? Because you only had the conversation from what was in your head. You didn't have the conversation from what was in your heart, right? And that conversation then is almost twofold because that other person has to be listening with their heart, not with their head. So I feel like in that community, we did all have our hearts open to listen to each other because we were coming from a place with no judgment,
That's right.
with truly no judgment. And I don't know if that is because we drew in I don't want to call them the right kind of people, but the people who were at the right place in the right time and ready to be healed, right? Ready to speak and be open. Um, but the community felt safe, you know? And for me, um, so like one of the things that came up for me was my family, right? There was a couple things that, and I'm sure that's for most people, right? We are who, how we were raised in our formative years, right? So when you talk to a family member that maybe disappointed you, or, maybe you have a rough patch with them today, um, it doesn't always go so easy. You're still kind of head to head, right? And you could say, well, that's because there's feelings there, or there's, there's thoughts that aren't connected to the whatever the reasons are. There's animosity there, really, there's just egos, things like that. But what I found was that when you could discuss things in this group first and have your feelings accepted and heard, it made then having those conversations with your family easier to have, almost because your feelings were validated, not judged by an outside community. So that is kind of where I said before, yeah, it's great to belong to a community. We all want to belong to a community. But when you belong to the right one, which none of these people from GL 28, I think, are going to show up at Christmas dinner. I mean, they might one day, but I missed them when the program ended because they
Yeah.
became like family. They were the
Yes.
right community. I didn't have to work to belong to them. I didn't have to try to fit in, just belonged. And the bond that was created and the healing for me that they brought within that group, or the 2 months past, because we're almost, what do we, oh no, what, we're about a month past the ending of that group, is incredible. How could these people that I hardly knew at the beginning of February have had such an impact on my life that their healing energy is still fixing my life after the class?
You know, the things you're saying are just huge pearls of wisdom that are coming out of you. I really believe there is a aspect of conjuring the right people in our lives and
Mhm.
having those declarations and being able to manifest those things. But I also believe a couple of things that have been really important in this journey of creating and co-creating a community with others. Obviously, no matter how much I wanted to do something on my own to bring people, if other people didn't come, it wouldn't matter, right? It's really a
Mm-hmm.
community-based movement.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just as blessed to be part of that as anybody who comes in with those intentions. I really mean that. But I'm aware that a couple of things that are really essential. Healing is a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, Rachel, when we have the right community, however that gets, concocted, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can create incredible things, just like you go into your goddess circle to have your
Mm-hmm.
ceremonies, and really having people that are holding the space for that kind of process, healing, transformation, whichever word that resonates in that particular experience, for that to be there. That's one thing. The second thing is, in my 30 plus years of being in medicine, I've been very much aware that there's such a sacred aspect of healing that if it's not met with a sense of safety,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like having sex in public. Not everybody's going to feel comfortable to do that. Some people do, but they're outliers, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
sense of intimacy because when there are things about us that are very tender within us because they may be hurt, difficult to approach, that in itself is enough to not want to be exposed to anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a big leap of trust,
Mm-hmm.
faith, that you tell yourself, I'm willing to be seen to such degree. Now, the big
Yes.
counterintuitive piece of all of that for anybody who goes through an experience like GL28 or any other of my experiential courses and experiences is that they start to realize very early on, like you did, and just like the other community members, that when I give myself the opportunity to be seen within the right conditions, obviously, just like in this
Mm-hmm.
community, it accelerates the process of healing, transformation, of breaking through what I call the invisible human virus.
Mm-hmm.
And that unleashes the person and reconnects with the
Mm-hmm.
very essence of who we are and the purpose that we came programmed with to this lifetime to unfold and be.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hear you say so beautifully, even after this concluded, to continue to receive the healing gifts, I'm paraphrasing you, of that
Yes.
experience and the community, it's amazing. But by the same token, it's the experience that everybody has had through all of this experience, which is so beautiful, right? Because it really speaks to the people that are coming in. Once the conditions are set, which I do in every single kickoff call for my programs, to really let people know what is it that you came here for. And then
Mm-hmm.
once they start exploring on their own, independent of me and independent of the other members, they realize how much more they're receiving because of their willingness to
Yes.
show up
Yes.
for it. Is this
Yes.
resonating?
It is resonating. And I think what people have to understand is we're human, right? We all have the same emotions, you know? We all get sad by the same things, right? Everybody has been the child on the playground who maybe didn't have a friend to play with, who has been the kid in the cafeteria at lunch who, felt like the table next to them was making fun of them. We've been the adult that, maybe the relationship didn't work out. And we all are the same, and there's the interconnected line between us. So when you show up for a class like this and you just let go and put it out on the table, we can no, you can almost can't be judged in this kind of community because we've all been through it. And I learned from somebody in Austria, Anna, right? I,
Mhm.
n- I don't know. Will I see Anna one day? Maybe, but I learned a lot from her. I'm not going to see her at the grocery store next week, and she's older than I am, you know? And Lita, I learned from her, and she's in France or
Portugal.
Spain. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
Portugal, amazing, because it doesn't matter whether an ocean separates us, whether the color of our skin separates us. It doesn't matter. We're all the same, having the same feelings. So, and healing energy doesn't say, well, you're this, you're that, you're 16, you're 24, you're black, you're white, you're Spanish, yellow, you're purple, just heals. And to me, this was the whatever was brewing inside me was brewing, and this has just propelled me forward.
I completely
So,
agree with you.
now how do I pay it forward, right? Is I'm here to heal others. I mean, I've heard for years people will say to me, you know, um, well, I've been nicknamed Snow White. Because
Love
I'm
it.
so kind and sweet. But people will say to me, "You shine, girlfriend, you shine." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What does that mean, you shine?" Because I, did the right thing. I knew your son, was maybe going to work with you today when he could have had a play date, and I called you up and offered you, help or something. And to me, it's normal. Right? So, but I realized in this class, I do shine. And
Yes, you do.
I'm allowed to say I shine. I'm allowed to say, you know what, Rachel, you were pretty awesome.
Yes.
And there's nothing for me to feel shameful about in saying that because we were created to be awesome. We were created to be joyful. We were created to be loving, shining human beings. You just have to shed all that stuff.
Well, and you did a lot of that in those 28 days. Rachel, what has happened in your life after GL 28? Because I'm aware that this has continued to grow exponentially in you and continue to grow you. It's
Yes.
evident massively.
Yes. So I do have to say before I got on this call, I did look back at some of my old videos and my old, postings, and I still love her, but I'm like, wow, I felt that way 2 months ago. I don't recognize the girl who put the first video up. I don't recognize her in like her skin color, like the glow. I am so different. And I think we joked on the end call was that no one is ever shoving my power back into my 5'3" frame. It's not, it has just expanded. I I realized that so I mean obviously the school year is still going on, so I'm going to leave my PFO role in June. I have made the official decision to do that, and I am no longer going to volunteer within the school community because it's time for me to step into something greater, and that's okay. I don't have to feel guilty about it. Um, so that was some realization for me. I did pass the torch a couple weeks ago, and I normally would offer to help at the cost of myself. And I didn't, and
Oh.
a little, and I just said, I offered help in the sense of saying you can do it, right? And I truly believe that she can do that. And I will be there to help, but I won't be there to hold on, if that makes sense. Micromanage, control, right? Because sometimes that need to control is just because you fear letting go. So, in acknowledging that I am not going to be involved in this anymore, I've decided to look into what does Rachel want and who would Rachel want to be? And by doing that, it doesn't make me, less able to be a mother to my children or a wife to my husband or a daughter to my mother. In fact, it just makes me a better version of that person, right? So I was the mom this weekend who sat on the floor and played Scrabble with my 7-year-old. I haven't done that ever with her because I've been so busy putting my energies on other things. So I did ask myself the question. hmm, I wrote it down because I was going to forget. But what would I do with all this energy I have? Where would I put it? Right? Where does it really need it? So, anyway, I did one of the things I wanted to do. There was a section in gratitude in the launch that asked for you to list your desires and dreams. And that was really hard, right? Because we tend to feel a little guilty when we ask for things for ourselves, or at least I do, because I've been
Especially for the
conditioned
givers. Yes.
especially for the givers, because I don't look to receive, I just give, right?
Yes.
Um, so one of the things I asked for was the opportunity to finish my Reiki attunement, right? And I did, it was amazing. you put good things out to the universe, and if they're meant to come, they're going to come your way. And so I did get my Reiki 2 attunement, which means I can soon start practicing on others, which is exciting. I do love the woman that I attuned with. I think she is a good source. She's going to do Reiki circles on an upcoming Sunday for us to practice on people. And
Mm.
I just, I said I was the seeker. I just know I am exactly where I'm meant to be. So all that healing energy that I'm receiving from this, I'm just going to pay it forward.
Mm. That is so amazing. Rachel, I am so touched by that because ultimately the reason why we do these things is so that we can serve in much bigger ways.
Yes.
There's no point to learning things, to experiencing things, because this is not a brain thing, what happened here or what happens in this experience of
Mhm.
GL28 or inside of the Alive Partner community. It's really an experiential
Mm,
process.
mm,
And now you get to carry this and activate or
mhm,
reactivate or rekindle or empower the journey you were in of really wanting to be connected with the healer within you. And now to the point of
mm,
really shifting your professional aspirations
mhm,
while still being a young woman with all
mhm,
this professional background and professional background of servicing, right? And
mhm,
volunteering and understanding
mhm,
how communities work and bringing that from this place of healing, which is so amazing. One of the things that I like to ask my guests, Rachel, is this aspect because we get this question in the community too, people reaching out. I'm not so sure is this experience really for me? How would you answer that question if somebody was asking you, Rachel, should I do GL28 or one of the experiences with Dr. Mario in the Alive Partner community? What would be your response to that?
My response would be to put everything else down and run and sign up for this class, before you sign up for anything else. I think that one of the best things that you can do is something for you, right? And signing up for this class is for you. It's for everybody, and I think if you need to say, is it for me? Well, it is. It certainly is for you because feeling grateful is for everybody. Healing is for everybody. Um, None of us are beyond it. So sign up. Yes, I would say sign up. It's for all of us.
And I appreciate that because in the context, as you know, Rachel, of our community, people sometimes may get the wrong sense when we say the word healing, like, oh, I'm okay, there's nothing wrong with me. No,
Yes.
we never
Yeah.
come from a place of assuming that there's something broken within you, wrong with you, that you're ill. No,
Mm-hmm.
if you're in a journey of wanting more out of your life,
Mm-hmm.
a journey of growing, if you're
Mm-hmm.
in a journey of being the seeker like yourself, even if you're not ill, you don't have to be. There are other things
Mm-hmm.
that are the curiosity within you is just really
Mm-hmm.
loud.
Mm-hmm.
When I speak to healing, I'm really speaking to fulfilling and addressing all those forms of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
If on top of that, it happens to be the case, like some people in the journey that you were part of, that there's some physical ailments, like people with arthritis that could not move their hands well in 15 years. And by the end of the journey, they have no symptoms. They know we're not taking medications, as you know, that happened in our
Mm-hmm.
community. People who had have massive shifts in their professional careers, losing their jobs after many years, and now suddenly,
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen in my life?
Mm-hmm.
These things happen no matter where you're a high-end executive or somebody who does other kind of professional services and you don't see
Mm-hmm.
yourself as that big honcho person, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
man or a woman. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so from that angle, which is really how we embrace our community members, that's really how we approach the aspect of healing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, so I would say that as humans, as a culture especially, um, we tend to get worn out, right? And one of the first signs of us being worn out, whether it's in work or whether it's in just daily obligations, is you begin to lose patience, right?
Yes.
And the reason that you get worn out is because you've forgotten what to be grateful for, right? You've forgotten that. Yes, so true. Thank you. You've forgotten that this career that you prayed for every day and asked for and were so grateful to have, right? it's wearing you out because you forgot all the good parts of it, right? You know, these 3 children that I wanted so terribly, my last one I cried every day for, right? Sometimes by the end of the day, I'm worn out and I'm not patient because I forgot to go through my day and say, I'm so thankful for Olivia because I'm so thankful for Logan because Victoria brings me joy because we all need gratitude in our lives because in today's culture, we are all worn out. And
Yes.
in order to keep us spiritually aligned and active participants in this world where we live and being there for each other, if you need to ask the question, is this course for me? Then you need to be in this course.
Thank
Because
you.
just asking that question is almost a sign that you're worn out and you're looking for something more. And here is your more.
Such a powerful way to put it. It's really this existential burnout.
Ugh, yes,
And that's what
yes.
you're really talking to is the existential
Hmm.
burnout that we are seeing in societies in advanced and developed nations like ours here in the United States, where we are pretty much in this rat race every day and we really
Yes,
neglect, not intentionally, neglect the things that matter most.
yes.
We have been in conversations today with Rachel Fligman here in Life Partner TV in another amazing episode of the Human Power Series or HPS. Rachel, I always like to ask my guests, is there
Mhm.
anything else before we conclude this conversation, this gathering, that you would like to share with the audience? Anything that comes to mind? And if there's nothing, that's perfectly fine too.
So for me, you know, I think coming in, I was very concerned, right, worrying about like what was in the future, right? We always tend to be a society that wonders about what's coming, right? Like, what am I going to do tomorrow? Where are we going to go on vacation? And one of the messages that I left this program with was, what if what is coming, is better than what has gone, right? And um, this class made me believe that, you know, I left it not fearing what tomorrow was going to bring because I know it's going to be just better than today. And however I live today, whatever is coming my way, my main goal is to be joyful. So that is what I would say, people, be joyful.
Amazing. Today we have been in conversations with Mrs. Rachel Fligman in another episode in a Live Partner TV in the Human Power series. Rachel, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of the entire community, the people that were part of your community in that cycle of GL28, and everybody watching
Yeah.
for your vulnerability, for your generosity, for taking the time to share yourself, your life's journey in such a vulnerable, raw, and open way with all of us. Every time we do that, we change the world, we elevate it, we make it better because we're
Mhm.
connecting, as you were saying earlier, with that element which makes us all human, which is so
Mhm.
common to all of us, no matter where we're watching and tuning in anywhere in the planet. But most importantly, I'm going to ask you watching this to like this and subscribe to our newsletter, not for the sake of just following me. That I really honestly don't think that that's the most important
Oh,
thing.
but I'll follow you wherever you
Thank
go.
you. But the most important thing ultimately is the following. If this has resonated with you, please share the content with somebody else. Every single time that I do an episode on Life Partner TV, I always conclude by saying, you watching this conversation today and sharing it with one person or multiple people that you love in your life may make you the catalyst of change for that other life that you're sharing this with. Rachel's story is a universal story. It's a story of going from one place in your life, going through the journey, the hero's journey, and ultimately coming through the other end more alive than ever and having awarenesses that were not there before. This is a universal story. And if this has resonated with you today, her healing journey, as you share it with somebody else, may actually be that fire that needed to be ignited to bring healing, positivity, joy, and transformation in that person's life. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for your generosity of joining us in this episode of Alive Partner TV. And I can't wait to welcome you personally on our next episode. Thank you, Rachel, for being here.
Thank
So
you for
long.
having me.
So
Take
long,
care.
everybody. See you next time.
See you next time.